The conference came because Professor Doherty wanted to invite a group of scholars who would come here and who would talk about global inequalities, but also talk about circulation of ideas. Some of those ideas seem to have direct correspondences with the U.S. history of white supremacy and African Americans. Some of those ideas have correspondences with transnational processes that are organized by Europe's relation to Africa and the New World through slavery and through colonization. Blackness is not meant to just describe people of African descent, but it's meant to describe a process that includes people of African descent, but as the history of ethnicity and racializing in the United States shows us, it doesn't necessarily refer only to people of African descent. Just considering the history of how this nation put itself together, there's no one who's not touched by the racialization process that we track when we say global blackness.
Blackness is sort of this all-encompassing experience for students all across the African diaspora. I can't pin it to a particular thing because I think we contribute to it every day. It's an ever-growing, ever-developing, ever-evolving experience network. And I don't think there's any way to be black or a way not to be black. I think students of the African diaspora built this sort of like black culture, not only here on Duke's campus, but across the world.
I think blackness is something that's hard to define, but I'd say it's just as vague as defining whiteness or something to that nature. I feel that blackness has been defined by negative stereotypes and stigmas put upon African Americans, Afro-Caribbeans, Africans, but for me, my blackness is it's courage. Blackness for me is pride in the head wraps that I'll wear on campus or hanging my Jamaican flag up in my room. As a student, on one hand, I feel like it's made me more aware of the spaces I take up and how I navigate certain spaces. As far as being in the classroom, I feel like it's made me evaluate and reevaluate my reactions to certain things, or if we're in a class debate, I always in the back of my mind I have that don't be the angry black woman stereotype. On another hand, though, I feel like especially being at an institution like Duke, it's made me more proud, more aware of the history. If I study people like Medgar Evers, and Stephen Biko, Septima Clark, people that normally are not found in our textbooks, it's heightened my sense of pride in who we are as a people.
I think Duke specifically has such an interesting history with black students and with the black community on its campus. From just 51 years ago, the first black students, undergraduates being led into the university, to the Allen Building takeover in 1969, into BSAI, something that happens every year for newly admitted black students. The presence and the identity here is strong, and it's all based in community.
Most USers are not encouraged to think about the complicated strands of our existence in our social order. So we are not encouraged to think about history except as something that was lived in the past that we're not living now. Thinking about this in terms of blackness means that you can't ignore history's presence in this contemporary moment. And even if you think of yourself as untouched by the U.S.'s history of racialization, part of what produced whiteness as a value is touched by that racialization. So nobody escapes it, but whether you're aware of how that's entrenched in our social order depends a lot on what you think about, what you read, how you understand what it means to be a citizen in the United States in the early 21st century, what it means to take your place on a globe that was made by the same history that produced the United States.